Okay, so this is going to be one very clearly indie video. All right, my name is Adrian Chmielarz. I am the creative director at the Astronauts, and we just made the Vanishing of Ethan Carter. And previously, I have been the co-owner and also a creative director at People Can Fly. We've made Painkiller and Bulletstorm and Gears of War Judgment. So, Josh sent me 5 questions. And I'm sorry, I couldn't do it live, but I'm in Europe. I'm a little bit sick, actually. So I'll try to answer them and give you a little bit of info on our game and gaming and my life journey and why I think games matter. So the first question was, well, what is the vanishing of Ethan Carter and why is it unique? And I have absolutely no idea why my voice is trembling, because I'm not really, it's not my first video ever. Anyway, so the Vanishing of Ethan Carter is well, an adventure game at its heart. We call it a weird fiction horror, and meaning it's a little bit different to most horror games out there that are mostly about jump scares or killing, which is fine, or hiding, which is also fine. In our case, you actually focus on the investigation. You play as Paul Prospero, a supernatural, well, a detective with supernatural powers, an occult detective, if you will, who is looking for a missing boy named Ethan Carter. And I think there are two very unique things about this game. The first thing is that it's an example of how indie games get more and more production values. I don't think these production values are necessary, but it's a fact that, you know, this sort of indie arms race is happening, and our game is an example. We use a technology called photogrammetry to produce the visuals for the game, and many people agree that this is one of the best looking games on the market right now. And again, this is not necessary. I love stylized game, I love pixel art, but for what we wanted to achieve, that was actually really important, because in our game, a sense of presence is very important. And I think that sense of presence and immersion and engagement is the holy trinity of a good video game. So if you haven't seen anything from The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, just, you know, Google that, and I hope you'll see that the graphics are something special. More importantly to me personally is that second unique thing, which is that, well, with this game we try to evolve this new wonderful branch of the video gaming tree, which is narrative games. So I think the first wave was called, people called it walking simulators. And I mean, that's totally fine. I don't think creators have a problem with that name. I don't. I love these games. Some people call them walking simulators. Jim Sterling called them glorified cameraman games, and I think that's, you know, silly fun. But these games matter to a lot of people, and a lot of people just love them, me included. So I think, but I think there was this first wave, you know, of Gone Home, Dear Esther, and then we had sort of the ending of the first wave, of maybe the beginning of the second wave, with games like Mine, Path to Thalamus, and more. I'm sure you can find multiple titles that all could be called walking simulators. So then we had this, you know, sort of these older branches of the tree, which were games that are focused on mechanics and gameplay mechanics, and you kill, and there's a system behind it all, and you focus on the system and you try to optimize it, and the cost of that is that sometimes you lose immersion. And engagement is there, but you lose immersion. So people often confuse the two, because they think they are immersed in a game of Tetris. You're actually engaged in a game of Tetris. But never mind that. So we had walking simulators versus mechanics-heavy games. And we thought, you know, what if we could actually do something that marries both sides and is a walking simulator full of interactivity and um, that was the idea for Ethan Carter. I, again, personally, not sure if anyone needs to agree. I call it the second wave of narrative games, meaning that, okay, we know that interesting things happen when you have a walking simulator. By removing some elements, you're actually enhancing the others. And but what happens if we actually keep increasing the dose of interactivity? So that's what's, I think, unique about Ethan Carter. It's I remember in my probably very first interview on the game, I told one website that I would say Ethan Carter is Dear Esther with gameplay and corpses, and I think that kind of describes the Vanishing of Ethan Carter pretty well. Okay, so let's see what the second question was, and that was, what has surprised you the most about the narrative design of Ethan Carter? What surprised me is how hard it all was, and there's this saying that everything is difficult because before it becomes easy, and that's totally true. It's like remember the first iPhone, and everybody was complaining how simple it was, how it misses a lot of functionality and this and that. And it's just basic design. There's almost nothing there. But I assure you that was years of work for a lot of people to get to this point. And it was the same case with Ethan Carter. I think the end result looks like a game that was almost effortless to design, but it could not be farther from the truth. It was a nightmare. It was 2 years of very hard mental work on the game, just so the end result is that it all looks simple. But other than this, I don't think many things surprised me. I think I was learning a lot during those 2 years, and whatever I've learned and whatever other guys and girls at the Astronauts learned, they try to put it into the game as well. So there is a lot of things that I discovered during the development of the game, but were not necessarily a surprise. The surprise is how hard such a simple game was to make. All right, the third question is, what is your creative work reflecting your own journey through life? So that's interesting. I mean, I think that the first example of what I do in any way being connected to my personal life is actually the Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I do believe in games that are sort of what's in the heart of the creator, what they really want to do. But at the same time, I believe in games, in commercial games. I mean, I don't have any issue with the game being commercial. I think it's a good word. It means that it's a game that people want to play. So I think I always made games that were what I wanted to do. Well, almost. I mean, it's never that easy, but almost always what I wanted to do, and commercial at the same time. But they were not really in any way connected to my life. When I was killing the hordes of, the undead in Painkiller, or kicking people into cacti in Bulletstorm, that it's really hard to find any connection to my own life journey. But it changed with Ethan Carter. And it changed in a couple of ways. Ethan Carter might be on the surface this weird fiction horror game about the detective and supernatural powers and a missing boy. But, well, without spoiling it, it also talks about some very serious subjects. And one of these subjects is death. And death that is really meaningful to you as a person. So I think that I was very moved when I read this old interview with Gabe Newell, who asked about, I think possibly Half-Life 3 maybe, or Episode 3. He said that people who started with Half-Life care about different things now, and because they've grown. For example, they are now afraid of the death of their children, and And that hit me because it was an absolute truth. I mean, well, it's Gabe Newell being smart again, but it was, it really touched me. I am a father, and it's very hard to explain to someone what it means to be a father, to someone who's not a father. And they think they get it. Yes, you have a child, you love that child, and I get what love is, and I saw a lot of movies, but trust me, no, you don't. So when this is apparently a sensitive subject to me, as you can hear from my voice. So so I am the father, and obviously death of my child is something I am very afraid of. And that theme is actually something that Ethan Carter also talks about. I know what the death of a loved one is. My father died of cancer when I was 9. So, as you can imagine, I don't want to spoil the game, so I can't talk more. But as you can imagine, even touching the theme of death is in the family is actually really something that matters to me. So Ethan Carter, it's still a commercial game. The beautiful graphics, the supernatural, and the mystery, it's all there. But it's also the least commercial game that I've ever made, and extremely personal. Okay, so the fourth question is, why does the interactive medium matter to you? And it's, I remember Edge, I think, asked me a couple of years ago, why do I like games? And other developers were answering this question too. My answer was, because games actually allow me to see attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I did live 1,000 lifetimes already, and I intend to live 1,000 more. It's absolutely, it's mind-blowing, the experience you can get from playing a video game and teleporting yourself to another universe. And I don't mind my own life. On the contrary, I'm a very happy man. But still, I just love being in these alternative worlds. I remember there was this bleak vision of the future where Matrix-like, when everybody is just having this nice dream connected to a machine, and I was like, okay, what exactly is the problem here? So I love these alternative worlds, and that's what gaming gives me. Some people even said that what games are absolutely excellent at, even better than storytelling, is creating the atmosphere and a sense of place. So yeah, when I was playing Red Dead Redemption, for example, I was there. I was a cowboy for 50 hours of my life. So that's one thing why it matters. But there's a lot of other things that are really great about the interactive medium, like, for example, the ability to increase your own empathy. And it's actually something that is very counterintuitive, because you could say, okay, right, so when you're playing a violent game, that actually will end up with you being more violent, or desensitized to violence, actually, which in itself is not a bad thing. It means, for example, you won't panic when something when there is an accident nearby. But anyway, the research actually shows that it's on the contrary, and that's why I say it's counterintuitive. It actually shows that people can actually be more empathetic in real life if they play video games, and among them violent video games. So I think that's a very interesting thing to research and to focus on, and it's a wonderful side of gaming. One of many, basically. We're still discovering what exactly this interactive medium is. And I absolutely love it. I think this is an excellent storytelling medium. Look, I could go on and on and on. I think there is not a lot of bad thing in gaming, and there is an absolutely astounding amount of amazing thing that gaming offers. And the fifth and the last question was, what game has meant to you, a lot to you at some point in your life, and why? So this is extremely hard question to answer. I was thinking of a lot of games in my head, and I just realized that the game that, you know, and there's like a lot of titles, trust me, and then I realized that the game that matters the most to me is The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. And I'm sorry, I know this is a game that I've made along with 7 other people, the astronauts and co-operators, of course. But well, it is the game that matters to me the most, because it was the closest to what I really wanted to make as a designer out of all games that I've made. And I enjoyed, I think, every single one that I worked on. And I love The Mystery of the Statuette, which was my first commercial game. And obviously Painkiller and Bulletstorm. I mean, don't get me started. I totally love them all, but the most important to me is The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. But okay, outside of my own games, okay, let's talk about the 3 games. The first one is Chmielarz, and it's an old singular spectrum game. And what's funny about it is that I fell in love with it not seeing a computer or this particular game at all. It was this old magazine in the old communist Poland that actually basically had 2, like, you know, very small pictures, images, screenshots of the game. And I just fell in love with computers, games, and Chmielarz in particular by just looking at those 2 small post-stamp sized shots. So, and then it turned out that the game was actually amazing, so that's good. But that's how I got into this. This is what made me love video games, looking at a video game. The second game I think that was really important in my life was Quake, particularly Quake World. I spent 5 years playing, well, not professionally, but every single bloody day. So I was pretty good, but I didn't have real talent there. Andrew, who is my business partner at the Astronauts, along with me, how Andrew like kicked my ass 9 out of 10 times easily at it. But still, it was an amazing experience. I managed to free myself from the spell after 5 years, and I do think I spent way too much time on this game, but still, some of the best memories of my life is Quake World. And finally, I think Dear Esther is the third game, and it's gonna be really weird because I'm actually personally not a fan of this game in a way that it just didn't really do anything for me from the story point of view. Obviously the graphics were insane, but that game sort of allowed me to see video games in a completely new light, because after I finished it and I was like, okay, I don't get it really, I went to Steam forums and then I read all these people that were in total love with Dear Esther, and they were explaining why and how they discovered many things that I actually did not even bother to look for, just because I was so conditioned to have a certain way of thinking of video games, that they have to be this, that if I look behind the waterfall, there has to be a treasure there, and there need to be pickable items, and so on and so forth. So after spending a day on Steam forums, I just realized that my view on what a video game is was kind of narrow, that it can be much more than what we already had on the market at the time. And that's fantastic because you know it's like with the movies. You can have documentaries and you can have space operas and you can have serious social commentaries. Same with books, right? They can be about anything. They can even be a phone book. So I'm really happy to see the same thing happening to games. I mean, I love blowing stuff up as mostly everybody, and I just spent about 50 or whatever more hours in Far Cry 4 hunting animals and people with my grenade launcher from the helicopter. So I'm really Batman. But I also love games that are about social issues, politics, I don't care, psychology, something that is basically different and forces me to think about, reflect on my own life and on my own views. So that's why Dear Esther was important to me. Okay, so that's it from me, and happy to be a part of this wonderful project. Thank you for watching.